Station has been playing like it. Now it's time for Noble to show us that they can do that exact same thing. Come in, at least get a split here, and try and get a little bit closer to that middle of the pack.
Jing Wei, the first ban for Noble. This is that throwaway ban we talk about all the time in that first pick position. As you mentioned, John, this is a god that Zatman likes to play a lot. And Wowie, even though it was first picked for him in that game, I never really feel like Wowie was making a huge impact in that one. Really wasn't able to because Noble was always on the defensive, at least the beginning of the engagements.
And we're seeing what you get when you're the first pick. You get to force Space Station Gaming to make bans like this. They're the ones that got to ban out that RDO unless they want Noble to first pick it up, as well as having to ban out Fafnir and Ganesh. We're seeing a lot more focus here lately, I think, on banning out these supports.
As you mentioned, with Terra kind of falling off with the nerf, we saw her played earlier on today, but didn't get a victory. This is just the kind of quick reaction. Now, where teams go with it, new supports will rise. That's how it always is. New gods will rise that didn't have great matchups into Terra, mobile gods mostly. Those sorts of things will go, but this is the first competitive that we've seen on the other side of those nerfs, so this is just kind of the knee-jerk reaction so far.
I think if you can get a Wheelix on your team, Sobek's looking pretty nuts right about now, but we see Hu Yi locked in for Zatman. Want to make sure he's on something comfortable, and Andinster wants to run it back on the throw, so those big two hard carries are picked up for Space Station. That's their focus, but Noble look to take away the Nemesis. They don't want to see Home Fei on that anymore.
I like this counter pick by Noble. I think I would have preferred to see them go with Thoth first pick, honestly, because of how good Andinster was on a #1 and how good Moswall is on it as well. But Nemesis Sylvanas, they liked that composition that Space Station was using, so they say, hey, we'll give it a shot ourselves. Do need to be worried, though, because Hu Yi is so good into Sylvanas, because he locks down that character really, really well. Now Osiris for Space Station, which locks down that Sylvanas beautifully. This could be jungle for Omiefe. He's played it before. Would be great up against that Sylvanas, but would need to be worried about that Nemesis in the jungle for Skilladon.
Osiris does have a strong matchup going into Sylvanas, so that's something that could pose a problem. Now we're going to see what Jigs wants to go to in his support pool without having that Sylvanas available for him. Naja is the ban out for Noble, and Space Station banning out Cupid, so they think Cupid is likely to be something that Wowie might want to take into that ADC role.
Love it. Really smart ban by Space Station, because Wowie's played Cupid a lot during his time in the SPL and has had a lot of success on it, and it's great into the composition that Space Station has drafted thus far. Another AMC ban taking that out of Wowie's hands. Naja and Serket mean that Noble think that Osiris is going into the solo lane for Scary D. Could certainly be the case. You just have to wait and see what they want to go for, and it is going to be Thor, so that will be Homiefe on the Assassin in the jungle, leaving the Warrior to Scary D.
And it's a smart ban, I think, from Noble too. Serket's so strong in the Sylvanas that Space Station, even if that wasn't the plan all along, can kind of flex into that Serket. So just take it away from him. Noble, though, do take Rom, which we saw Zatman on last time. So Rom makes it this late into the draft. No reason to force it early. And Scylla's going to be the pick for mid lane for Noble. I mean, we know Moswell can follow up after last game.
It's true. And my only worry is in the late game, there's not a lot of setup for this Scylla. In the mid game, you know, Sylvanas is going to be there all the time. Wrath of Terra is going to, you know, some of the best in terms of setup for this Scylla. But in the later stages, when Sylvanas won't be able to be that initiator, how well can Moswell position and try and get those I'm a Monster resets? Now this draft for Noble is a little bit more early game focused but recognizing that he will most likely be the focus, just as Jigs was in game #1, going for the more defensive option with the Shell.
And it looks like the call from Space Station is to be aggressive into the jungle of Noble. The Osiris and the Thor, both very strong early game, especially Thor with his passive, where he gets stronger the more enemy gods he's literally got around him, the stronger he'll be. So that makes him strong in this early game level 1 fight where Skilladon and the Nemesis won't have a whole lot available to him.
But it looks like Space Station's willing to just go to lane and allow Noble to start up that speed buff at least, where Andy and Jig starting together in the mid lane once more, but Moswell with Wubbin on the Sylvanas, this should definitely favor Noble in terms of clear.
And it looks like it does. Space Station just kind of backing up, and Moswell and Wubbin are going to rotate over to try and help out on this solo side jungle, where we already said Space Station are going to have a good bit of pressure. Instead, they just go ahead and go for these mid-Harpies since Space Station aren't invading on any actual buffs. And this way, now Scary D and Homepay can come back and just take those fire elementals, no problem.
This is pretty much a wash on the right-hand side of the map, with Noble getting right side mid-Harpies and Space Station getting fire elementals. It's a matter of what Noble's going to do with this pressure on this next wave on the right-hand side. Walrus should be pretty close to transforming, and will be very close now. So will this invade be the call for Noble? Looks like they're going to the enemy blue.
Yeah, they should have been able to recognize that no buffs were picked up by Space Station. Nobody was carrying it around, and they could see him in wave the whole time. And that pressure from Wubbin and Walrus, or Wubbin and Moswell, they were able to be here to help that clear and the speed buff be very, very quick. Horrific Emblem comes out, but the sprint's enough for Homie FA along with that hammer to get away, no problem. But now they are going to go back in on this blue.
And Homie looking for the fight onto Walrus, who'd already used his 3 to get away. Now Homie's very low, and he's going to fall for first blood. Skeleton with that one. Nice pull by Wubbin. Pull Scary D back in. The root right afterwards. Scary could fall here as well.
Wubbin playing this Sylvanas very well. The pull and the root to try and help lock him down. But Jigs finally arriving, able to get that shield off to help Scary D escape. The double bounce from Zapman on the Wowie. That's going to have him low, and not on the Jingwei this time. You're going to have to walk back, buddy.
He has a health bot still with that Death's Toll, but I love what Zapman does. Using that experience, he knows that he has no reason to clear that wave and give that farm to Wowie. Force him to back, make him miss some experience in gold.
Especially with all the farm in this duo side or long lane side jungle being taken care of, there's literally nothing for Zapman to go do. So just freeze that wave and deny the farm out to Wowie after he gets that highlight reel double bounce on him. Now Zapman will have his ultimate far and away ahead of Wowie, which in and of itself could pose some trouble if Wowie comes up too far. But that's why we see Wubbin rotating in to try and alleviate some pressure.
But with Zap having red buff, honestly, it could potentially take a 2v1 in this scenario, especially with a full wave there. Zap could back right now and probably get close to finishing off his boots in a wave or two, but I think I'd rather see him wait it out, go for those Devourer's Gauntlets right away and start the stack as early as possible.
Skeleton taking poke from Annenster, but it's Walrus who goes in and gets the knock-up on the several members. Moswell easily cleans that one up with the crush over the top. Now it's 2-0, sit the kills, and Noble, at least in the kill department, are out in front.
And again, it's Walrus with pressure in the solo lane, Scary D behind in the early game. So will Walrus be able to hang on to it this time and prevent Scary from coming back into the game very quickly is the question for Noble. I like that time that Skeleton throws the ultimate onto one member of Space Station and then immediately switches targets onto Annenster, trying to keep him down as well. He was a big problem for them in game 1.
And you touched on it. It's really that mid pressure that's been a big deal. Moswell's been able to get over to these team fights and be a big part of them, sometimes before Annenster's able to be over there. That's why that speed buff invade went so well. And we did see Moswell eventually clean up the kill on this last fight as well. So Moswell having some pressure has really helped out.
And it's a lot in large part due to Wubbin being in that mid lane consistently that helps Moswell get that advantage and clear. But at the same time, Scylla does not have the same clear problem she used to with Soulstone. You only need a couple points into Crush to really full clear those archers. Doesn't take long for Scylla clear to become very, very good. And so Moswell is only a point or two away from being at the point where he'll be able to rotate much quicker than Annenster.
And to sort of move it away a little bit as the speed buff's coming online and Noble will take a look at it. But look at how Zapman sitting up at the top of that XP per minute. That's big for him, being able to get that solo farm over there, force Wowie back. If Zapman can make a rotation, then he could have a big impact too. As Noble looked to contest one more time, Final Judgment was committed, and I believe that still wasn't enough. Noble get that speed.
I like the idea from Annenster. He recognizes that Space Station doesn't want to fight for the next 90 seconds or so anyways, so may as well try and secure that speed for his jungler. Golden experience even more important than the buff right now. Doesn't end up going his way, but good thought.
Unable to stop that speed buff invade. At least, though, Space Station are able to take those oracles over there on that long lane side, so that's not a problem. Noble still looking for more, really trying to keep down Homie FA and Scary D on this solo lane side. And why wouldn't they? This is where they have all their advantage. They come over here to the blue buff. Hammer comes out and not able to contested, or at least it looks like he was able to steal it.
Bluestone is what makes the difference there. So Scary D will get his own blue and really more worried about the golden experience at this stage than the buff itself. So good small win for Space Station right there.
Looks like the sprint might have been popping that last engagement, at least on the side of Osiris there. So that's something that won't be available for him a little bit longer. Again, 2-0 sit the kills here. Noble have, through this pressure they've been put on the right-hand side, have established a little bit less than a 1,000 gold lead, but this time we're seeing them put the little bit of a lead they have in the early game into action, putting pressure onto this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side also could be a big win for them as they get 500 more global gold and a little bit less safety now for Space Station on that side.
Scary looks like he got a little bit too greedy to pick up that blue buff that Homie dropped for him, went in to get it, had to use his sprint, as you mentioned, and the ultimate as well, and and go back to base. So that means that Noble takes that opportunity to get that tier 1 and right. Much better job from Noble so far of invading where they have pressure. It's been consistent on the speed buff, on the blue buff, using Wubbin.
Jigs blinking in, Final Judgment immediately falling off from Ananster, and the wall from Homie was perfect to separate Wubbin from the rest of his team. Zapman is able to rotate over and be a part of that fight. His ultimate, those Suns, help them clean up Wubbin.
Scary in trouble on the right. No ultimate for him yet. Going to be coming up soon, but he needs to buy some time in order to get there. The rest of the team not even coming. No support, because Walrus is going to knock him down before anyone can get there.
That's what Noble had to do with the hard commit from Space Station on the mid lane. They knew they were free. Skeledon and Walrus were to commit on the Scary D, and they clean him up. And now that tier 1 tower's fallen, Scary D's even a little bit further behind, Walrus is going to be further free to rotate into the engagements. So the same way we saw Zapman sort of get a little bit of a lead and come in to help out that engagement, Walrus will now be able to push up the wave and rotate into team fights and have a big impact with that Kakulin pick.
I mean, level 10 right now for Zapman on this Hu Yi. He got the only kill so far for Space Station as Ananster actually used the beads there despite the shield being ready from Jigs. Bit of miscommunication potentially between the two. That was a huge play from Homie as well, hammering into range to block off the escape from
that
Wubbin.
Wall was perfect.
If you've never seen Homie play Thor before, he's pretty comfortable on that god, if you couldn't tell already.
Yeah, Homie FA, I agree, was a big part of why that fight went so well. It took them a while to secure that kill onto Wubbin, so him being able to sort of them being able to isolate him was what made that happen. Ultimate comes out from Walrus, hitting no one, trying to create a little bit of space for the rest of his team. And look at how hard Moswell's swinging with that crush.
Already, and that's without the Soulstone proc being available for him, not getting that extra little boost of power for having 5 stacks stored in there with the auto attack. So you can tell that Moswell's already off to a pretty good start in this game and should continue to make a bigger impact as it goes on.
Scary D once again under trouble from Skeledon, who's happy just to force the solo laner to back one more time because that blue buff is up. And again, this time Noble want to actually be able to secure it, as last time Homie was able to cheekily take that one away with that Bluestone proc, and it looks like they were able to come over and fight.
Blue buff did go Noble's way. Now the ultimate onto Ananster, who has a purification beat. Shield already gone from Jigs, but Final Judgment was enough to scare Noble back. Now on the run, trying to get away. Again, got the blue buff, got what they came for. That's all they really That's all they really cared about.
And that plan from Noble is coming through very clearly. You can see what'll happen is Skeledon will rotate over and not necessarily look for the kill, but just look to bully Scary D away from that solo lane, away from that jungle. And Scary D, because he's behind, he's forced to back. He doesn't have any kind of defense or anything online right now, and when they force him back, they take the speed, they take the blue. Or Walrus will rotate over and have an impact in mid, and that's what we've seen from Noble. They're executing this lead very well.
Look at the net worth charts right now on your bottom left of your screen. It's Zapman on top. He's #1 in the game in terms of farm going his way. And then it's 5 Noble members.
Yep.
They've done a great job of getting every lane ahead except for this duo lane. And that's fine. Zap being a little bit ahead in this lane, not the end of the world. So Wubbin going to pull him in and hit him with the beads in the ultimate, but Zap going to force 2 away all by himself.
Zapman getting pulled in, and we all know Zapman loves to fight, so he was happy to have someone initiate for him. All right, let's throw down. He drops the ultimate on top of himself. His beads were forced out, so he'll be waiting about another 142 seconds for those to be back, but he is safe without any rotation needed.
Nice play by Wubbin there on the Sylvanas, getting those purification beads as Ananster takes a big chunk of damage from Skeledon. This is before Skilly finishes off a Heartseeker, a Stone-Cutting Sword, whatever he wants to go for in that second item slot. That Nemesis, so good at poking out the enemy now. That Slice and Dice just has so much safe damage.
Now, Noble's done a good job in this solo side jungle to try and establish an early lead. It's getting closer and closer to 2,000 gold now. What's the next step for Noble, the next obvious application of the lead they've established? About 1,600 or so.
I think I'd rather see them go for Portal Demon than Gold Fury right now, because if I'm Noble, I don't want to fight anywhere near Zapman. Yeah. Zap is the guy who's going to give us the most problems, so look for a pick in mid or on the right-hand side. Again, Scary's pretty exposed on this right side because of the lack of tier 1 towers. So if Noble can get a pick, I'd prefer to see them go towards Portal Demon to stay away from Zapman as long as possible.
Zapman successfully stealing away that red buff with the strong clear, but it's the right side where Skeledon's beads are already down. Homie FA up into the air looking to crash down as Walrus does use that Rage Form ultimate to keep both Jigs and Scary D at bay. coming back down as Homie Faye just to pick up his speed so he can walk away happy.
And Noble starts backing up there because Zapman makes the rotation. He's in mid lane, and again, they do not want to fight around him. He's got 70 stacks on the Devourer's Gauntlets. He's level 13. Wow, he's got 3 stacks so far.
Another perfect wall coming out from Homie Faye. Walrus has nowhere to go and gets blown up by Scary D. Sprint comes out, and it's Skeledon who could potentially be in trouble, but Scary D has no mana to make anything happen. Wubbin uses the ultimate, but Final Judgment comes through his back. Zapman ends up getting credit for that kill, and now Skeledon is the one in trouble.
Great fight, all started by Homie FA's wall. Again, his Thor is so consistent for Space Station Gaming. Now looking for the Portal Demon. And again, that's a fight that Space Station want to take because Zap is there and he's ready to fight.
And this is exactly what we're talking about. When Zap has that pressure, he can rotate in and be a part of it. That fight happens, I believe, almost 100% because of Homie FA is that wall, though. But Zapman being a part of it, as you said, is such a big factor. That's where their only lead is right now, is when Zapman's able to be a part of those fights. He's so much more impactful right now than Wowie is just because of how the early game went. Now it's Space Station who have the Portal Demon and Space Station who have 4 to 3 in the kills. And now the gold is all but evened up as well. So Noble's early lead has kind of evaporated off the back of that one team fight.
And this is exciting. This is an exciting game to watch if you're a Space Station fan. You know, it hasn't gone particularly your way so far, but for me, this is the first game where Zap has looked like Zap again during the fall split of Season 4. As I mentioned on the desk, took him a little bit to shake off the rust. Zap right now is looking like a dominant ADC once again, and we know he has it in him. He's been in dominant ADC basically his entire career, and to see him playing at this level again really excites me as an impartial viewer, but especially if you're rooting for these guys, this is the guy that can really take this team to the next level.
And he's way ahead of Wowie in terms of stacks, too. His Devil Gloves are fully finished off. So not only is Zapman a threat in these team fights, but if Noble commit too hard on the solo lane side, Zapman's a threat to just burn through that Gold Fury ult. Suns rain down the Wubbin. Knockup is perfect. Anderson follows up with the Final Judgment. I don't know if it was even necessary as Homie FA is up into the air. He comes crashing down and finds nothing, but Space Station are happy with their clean pick on the Wubbin.
A nice decision by Noble to say, Wubbin's dead. We're not going to overcommit to try and save him. No one could have saved Wubbin in that scenario because Homie was looking for Skeledon, who didn't have his purification beads up quite yet. Just now coming up off of cooldown. Wise decision by Noble to let him go.
And now it's Space Station who are the ones who are deciding where the fighting happened. This is why I was saying at the end of last game that even though the gold was so even, it felt like Space Station were the ones with the momentum or the ones with the control, because Space Station are the ones who came over and aggressed into the jungle of Noble and forced that kill into Wubbin. And I mean forced. I mean, look where they were on the map. It's not as if Wubbin was out of position.
Zap on the red buff invade along with Jigs and Andy, but this is an outnumbered fight in Noble's favor. Ultimate onto Andenster, 2 onto him, as now up into the sky goes Wowie.
Wowie's up in the air to try and put the damage on the Andenster, who took a lot early, and they did clean him up. Jigs gets taken down. Remember that Moswall damage we talked about? It sure helped Skeledon clean that kill up. Now it's 5 to 3 in favor of Noble. They immediately turn to the Gold Fury, but Scary D and Homie FA are ready to rotate in on the back and try and contest.
Zap still here and healthy with that red buff. Gold Fury falling pretty low. Moswall trying to secure it with the crush and will do so, but into the backline goes Scary D right away. Looking for Walrus now, turning around as that wall gets jumped over beautifully by Walrus.
Scary D is doing such a good job, though. Skeledon had to wait to use the dash to get through that jungle because of the wall, and that's why he ends up falling. Homie FA getting the credit for that, but up into the air as Wowie's very low, and so is Walrus looking to try and get something back, but Homie FA just backs off. They were happy to get those 2 kills.
2 kills, and it really could have easily been 3. Homie leveling that Berserker's Barrage, not going for the Mjolnir's attunement level, the hammer throw that we see a lot of Thors go for. He's been maxing that 3 all game long and sitting at 5 points in that. He was in the middle of 4 members spinning uninterrupted. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the game, Thor passive gives him extra power based on how many gods are around him. That means that Berserker's Barrage was absolutely swinging. That being said, Space Station should not be at that red buff. They have 2 people on the right-hand side of the map on their own side of the map getting speed for Homie. That's a 4v3 that Noble recognized beautifully and capitalized on. Luckily enough for Space Station, Scary and Homie come in and do a great job to clean up that team fight.
Homie Faye now very aggressive. Wubbin and Walrus have a chance to lock him down. They force out his beads for free. So Homie Faye just getting caught by Wubbin there and ends up getting those beads forced out. But, I mean, you can talk about that Berserker Barrage all you want, but I'm going to spend the game talking about these walls from Homie Faye. They've been absolutely nuts. That's why Skeledon died. That's why we saw the kill onto Walrus as well. He's just doing such a great job separating the team members of the fight. And it's not just, and sometimes we see those walls where they're on the wrong side of the wall, but he's doing a perfect job with them. Hasn't
missed yet in this game, and don't really expect to see him miss in this game because Homie Thor is probably the signature character for him in my mind. Homie Zots, yeah, that's right there with it. The 1A and 1B. But this guy's been playing Thor at a high level for a long time.
For Annister to be comfortable going to mid so you can play jungle, you kind of got to be this nuts with it. Skeledon, though, getting a little bit of a trade out with Homie Faye. I think it came out in his favor since he's the one with a Sylvanas on his team, so he'll heal up just fine and back off. But one more time, the game is sort of swung, it feels, back momentum-wise in the Space Station's favor. They're up only about 500 or 600. The gold lead's not what I mean. It's the fact that they're the ones picking the pacing of the fight. But Homie Faye has his ultimate forced out, and he'll have to back off.
Quick reaction there. Skeledon holds the ultimate, knowing that he doesn't need it to force Homie out of the fight. Maybe could have thrown it on him and found the kill, but decides to play it safe and not expend that ultimate and allow Homie to do the same on his side of the map. This time, Noble able to secure their own red, most importantly, keeping it out of Zapman's hands.
And I feel like for Noble, this is going to come down a lot to how well Moswell can get his damage off in these team fights. Right now, Wowie is not the one having too big of an impact in terms of damage. It really feels like if Moswell can hit multiple members with this crush or get that reset off onto Scylla, I don't want to steal Tom's top-level analysis, but one Scylla ult can change a game, ladies and gentlemen. And Skeledon is recognizing some of that Annister damage now.
Portal Demon pulled by Noble. Pretty low. There's the pull in onto Scary D, and he takes a lot of damage right away. Knock up as well from Wubbin, and up into the sky goes Wowie. Snipes. First one hits, needs the third, but the dot from Wubbin's going to clean it up for him.
And now that leaves Noble with the 5v4 to try and secure this Portal Demon. The ultimate from Annister was available, but I don't believe they even had vision on it to know how low it was. Noble get that Portal Demon and the kill, so that's a good job with them coming away with it all in their favor.
Nice pull in again by Wubbin, sets all that up onto Scary D. Wubbin playing really, really well this set. We talked about it coming in. He had struggled during the fall split thus far for Noble, but this has been his best set so far, no doubt.
I got to agree with you on both points. Yes, he's been struggling, and yes, he's been playing very, very well in this game. So that was exactly what we were talking about, too. It was the pull-in from Wubbin, but it was also the follow-up damage from Moswell that came in big in that engagement. Yeah, the Wisps end up cleaning it up, but it's because Moswell brought him down into that threshold. And we also saw this. Hold that thought.
Again from Homie, cuts off the escape from Skeledon, but not quite enough damage this time, even with the final judgment. Homie up into the sky, but probably can't come back down in the midst of this, even with Zapman coming back to the rotation.
And that's 3 ultimates on the cooldown for Space Station now without much coming out of it, so they'll have to wait on those cooldowns before they make any other engagement happen. Gold Fury only 30 seconds away from respawning, too, so this might be a chance for Noble to set up aggressively and try and make something happen.
Couple ultimates down on the side of Space Station, 3 out of the 5, but Zap's ultimate has been very, very impactful so far this game, namely in locking down Wubbin. But now that Wubbin's level 12, he went with Sprint, foregoing that blink, not worrying about the initiation. His pulls have been doing the initiating for him basically thus far. Good choice from him because it's been that Zapman ultimate, the Huyi Suns, that have really made life difficult for him. With that Sprint, they won't be as nearly as impactful.
And right before this Gold Fury come up, they are the ones with the vision. Check out Scary D. He's not quite here yet, so this is a moment where Walrus can go in and get the knock-up on the 3 members and have a little bit of an advantage. They back up and start trying to get that Gold Fury down to half health, and Skeledon was the one that was on zoning duty. Here's that Zapman ultimate that we're talking about how impactful it was, but Noble immediately dropped the Gold Fury so the DPS can't go onto it anymore. And there's the crush from Moswell onto Jigs, who immediately gets deleted.
Skeledon with the credit. Scary D doing his best to zone everyone away, but Jigs got blown up far too quickly for Space Station to respond. And now it's Noble the ones who have that sustained with the Sylvanas. Final Judgment comes off cooldown for Annister. Could look to try and steal it away.
And he is charging it up, trying to see if there's anything he can do to steal this one away. Not able to do anything about it, though. Gold Fury goes down in favor of Moswell for Noble. And now they have Still not really that much of a lead, 1,200 gold, but at least controlling some of that neutral farm.
Back and forth. This game has had leads for both teams so far, and Moswell's been positioning very, very well in these team fights.
Yep.
Jigs just wasn't able to get any sort of survivability from the rest of his team, and Moswell hasn't used his ultimate in about 10 minutes, it feels like. The last 2 engagements where they end up getting kills, they being Noble, it's off of just damage from Crush. It's Moswell now with the Obsidian Shard. Look at the build that Scary D has gone for. Look at the build that Jigs has gone for. Neither have a lot of magical protection. Jigs has a little bit with that Hide of the Urchin, but Scary D has none. One pull in and knock up from Wubbin should be an instant Crush I'm a Monster combo from Moswell. Scary D won't be able to survive it. They're the same level at level 15, and with how much penetration Moswell has between the Spear of Desolation and the Obsidian Shard, and how much damage he has just from the base leveling of the abilities, beautiful play again from Homie.
Yeah, there's that wall one more time, and Zatman's got blood in his eyes, looking to clean it up, but Moswell peeling for his jungler, keeping him alive. Send him a thank you text after this is over, because Moswell saved you there.
Why does he have to text him? They're talking right now.
Well, I mean, you send him the text afterwards as a thank you. It's like a formal thing you do.
A text is formal now?
Yeah, especially because you like give him a link where he can go get like a nice bottle of wine, 20% off discount code, something like that. You know?
Would you say is it a newer link? Is it an old link?
No, it's a young link. Yeah.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you for that one, Aggro. I really appreciate the young link shout out.
Can you tell that I've been working with Hindu Man a long time? That was the most Hindu Man thing I've ever done.
That felt more Tom than Hindu, but yeah.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
I felt like that was more Hindu Man.
Hindu Man makes me laugh, but okay. Scary D over here invading onto the jungle under a little bit of pressure from Skilladon and getting that tether off to try and shut this fight down. But now it's Space Station who are having to back off just a little bit. We talked about how patient Moswell's been being with his ultimate. It felt like Noble in general has just been patient this game. That fight on the Gold Fury was excellent to force the commit in. Zatman committed his ultimate, and they just went off the Gold Fury.
And again, that's what we saw from Noble in game number 1. It's just a matter of how patient can they continue to be as this game goes on. We're 22 minutes in, not quite at that 31-minute mark where they made their mistake last time, but right there, even with Space Station thus far.
And that means Noble's got to find some way to get back into this game. Space Station are the ones 4-man grouped here and looking to try and push down this mid-tier 1 tower. They recognize that they've got a lot of poke they can put off with Zatman and with Anster, and they're getting that poke out now, so they can try and do it, but the sustain is on the side of Noble.
But this gives, look at how far back Noble is. They need to be worried about where Space Station is going. They could go right to Portal Demon, and they have enough damage now where this Portal Demon can go down quicker than Noble could even get there, potentially.
Still Space Station trying to make this tier 1 tower happen. Looks like finally the call might be to sort of back off and see if they can get Noble to come into the jungle and fight him off that safety of the tier 1 tower and make something happen there. But Zatman, once again, they're on respawn for that red buff. That's been his for a while now. Lost to WoW, he lost it earlier in the game since he's been a little bit behind Zatman.
And the poke on Skilladon is just so tough to play against. The long range, talking about hieroglyphic assault, so tough to get past that and not take a big chunk of damage. Even with that sustain from Wubbin, it's not a big burst heal. It's a heal over time. But Annister is completely alone here, has to use the Aegis. A little bit too far forward, trying to steal away a purple buff that's really not too impactful right now.
And Skilladon had no vision on the rest of that jungle, so once he got that relic out, it was a good enough victory for him to just go ahead and back off and know that that's something that Annister won't have available for him. That Aegis is still got another 140 seconds or so waiting on it.
And that's big because now at this point in the game, Skilladon has one-shot potential onto a character that, like Thoth, that uses their dash and doesn't have an Aegis. Between the Stone-Cutting Sword and the Heartseeker, as long as you've got your ultimate up, Skilladon can knock down Annister before he can be an impact in this team fight.
And it's not just the kills here, which are 7-7, but the gold really is all but even, like 300 or 400 gold separating the teams. That experience difference, though, in Space Station's favor is something that could still be significant for a little while longer. Not quite at level 20 yet are all of our characters. Zatman and Wowie might be where we're really seeing that experience difference, though. He's level 20 and Wowie's level 17.
But Moswell's got a level lead in the mid lane. He's got a 2-level lead, in fact, in that mid lane. Plus, you look at Wubbin having a slight level advantage over Jigs. Not nearly as impactful. You're right. Zatman being the main one that Noble have to worry about. But I'm looking at Moswell having a lead in the mid lane, saying that maybe my mid-mage can have a bigger impact in the late game than yours.
And we know that Moswell has the damage. We've seen it coming out from these crushes. If he's able to find a big ult in these engagements, they very easily could go the way of Noble. And that's something that their team has too. They've got an ability to sort of clean up these team fights if someone tries to get away with low health, especially with Wowie. We've seen that. Even though Wisps can sort of tick over time and be enough to help sort of clean up. And it looks like Noble want to try and make something happen. The Cataclysm coming out from Jigs, and Zapman immediately following up with the Suns. It's Skilladon and Walrus, though, are taking a lot of damage. Homie F.A. goes up into the air as the final judgment from Annister is off the mark.
Homie a little bit too deep there with that ultimate. Can't quite find it. Wubbin finds 2 with that knockup. Good crush from Moswell as well. Snipes looking for Jigs. Wow, he needs the last one, but can't quite find him.
He hit 2, but not the smallest one, and that was the cleanup that we're talking about, so important for Noble. They weren't quite able to get. So even though Jigs is low, he'll just go back and heal back up, as Skilladon has to back up for Noble as well, so they don't exactly have a man advantage, though Jigs will be back here soon.
Annister almost hits that ultimate, but that's the big difference maker for Noble, is that Andy doesn't connect with that final judgment. Moswell again holding on to that ultimate during the entirety of that team fight. His ultimate he's been very patient with it, maybe to a fault. Like to see him use it.
Jigs gets pulled in and rooted, the crush damage, and finally the Ama Monster comes through. Jigs gets deleted from the map. Scary D, though, able to clean up Skilladon. Off the mark with that second one was Moswell, and now it's Wubbin and Wowie who are in trouble as Scary D lets the Thorns run through the team fight. He's being the front line that Space Station need.
Walrus gets stunned off the bounce. Homie gonna clean it up, but a 4-man ultimate from Scary D sets all that in motion for Space Station. You trade your support out. There comes the ultimate from Moswell, finally pulls it out, and in the right moment, but just such a good job by Space Station to keep the fight going afterwards.
And Moswell's off the mark with that second I'm a Monster, I think, is another big part of why that doesn't go well. You're right, they clean up Jigs, but when he's not able to find anyone else and they're sort of clumped on each other in that narrow corridor, Scary D lands on 4 members, and he's going through with the Thorns, with those with the Tendrils as well, and there's nothing that Noble can do to try and stick around that team fight. Now they clean up the Tier 1 tower in mid to Space Station, and they head towards that Portal Demon.
Scary really carried that engagement for Space Station, because as Jigs is getting knocked down by I'm a Monster, he finds Skilladon all by himself in the midst of everyone, because all of Noble's looking at what Moswell's doing to Jigs with that I'm a Monster. Scary is very clearly team fighting way better than his laning phase has been going so far. This is 2 games in a row where his laning phase has gotten poorly, he's gotten himself behind, and then 2 games in a row, to his credit, where he's come back and had huge impact in the team fights. He's level 20, Walrus is level 17, again, finding way more farm than Walrus on the right side of the map, and making a bigger impact in these team fights as well.
Scary D just sort of sidestepping the pull there from Wubbin. Just going to head back and back off. But now, Space Station are the ones that have the Portal Demon. Space Station are the ones who can set up and try and establish control around this Fire Giant pit. Again, now we're 28 minutes into this game, so both these teams are more than capable of burning these late game objectives easily and then coming down and trying to start taking out these towers. All Tier 2 towers are up for both teams. That's a lot of gold still in the map. So even though things are even, winning one of these fights right now can mean that your team starts taking a huge advantage off it as Wubbin gets stunned.
In trouble. Skilladon going to blink in to try and help out as support, but again, he's walled off beautifully by Homie F.A. Final judgment, just a little bit too short, can't quite find him, but Scary D will up and over with that Lord of the Afterlife.
And Homie F.A. ends up landing in the back, or landing in the middle of the team fight, now able to get some damage off. Walrus very low, as well as Wubbin's already back to base. That man cleans him up. Now it's a Wowie who's in a lot of trouble, and he's got to back off. This is the team fight we were talking about, as Annister deletes Moswell as well, where now things are going so heavily in favor of Space Station Gaming. At this point, only takes 1 team fight.
Wubbin just out of position there. He gets caught in a bad spot, and that forces Noble to get into the fight and help try and peel for their support. But that fight had gone so poorly for them right off the bat that Space Station's able to find it again. Scary D does a great job of controlling that. Zapman with the ultimate, he hasn't been really looked at. Annister's on the other side of the wall. No chance for anyone on Noble to zone him away from that team fight. Really well done by Space Station.
Now the Fire Giant has been taken in favor of Space Station Gaming. Walrus and Moswell will be back here before too long. Only about 10 seconds waiting on Moswell, but the problem is the regeneration and the extra damage on the structures that Space Station are going to have when they come in and start trying to make their push. As we said earlier, there's still plenty of gold on the map for them, So they go in, farm up that gold, then they back spend it, and sort of create a gold lead for themselves. Even though it's not as if they ran away with the game early, this is where they start to try and put some space between themselves and Noble, as they're already up about 5,000 or 6,000 gold.
Well, there's already space between them because they're a space station. They're in space. They're actually in orbit. And Noble, I mean, I wouldn't personally describe space as Noble. I've never met space. I've never been there, but I can't imagine that'd be the first word that I'd think of there, you know?
Certainly is space in the name of the team Space Station at the very least. So that's something that they've got. Yep, that's something they've got going for them in their favor. What they really have going in their favor, though, is that Fire Giant. They group in the middle lane and start moving to take down this Tier 2 tower. It's very low. It's going to fall. No chance of defending on it. Does Noble defend any of these structures?
I can't imagine that they want to heavily commit to a Tier 2. Now, maybe if Space Station try and wrap around the backside of a Tier 2, backdoor a Tier 2, they could look for the fight. But Jig's immediately using the ultimate on a Skilladon because Anitser's right there with the follow-up, knowing that Skilly didn't have any beads, but that was the only one there.
Skilladon had that shield to keep him alive. The ultimate comes out from Zapman on top to try and help Scary D get away, but there was just way too much damage coming out. He had to back off. Now we see the blink going in. Skilladon looks to try and catch Anitser in the back line. This could be huge, but Homie Faye is here to try and help. Skilladon does clean up Anitser. That's pretty big. A lot of damage for Space Station going to be missing.
Finally, someone recognizes that Anitser is leaving himself completely alone in these team fights, and the only reason that he gets caught out of position there is the blink from Skilladon, but that pickup ends up being huge for Noble, finding Anitser all alone on those backside Harpies. Wowie with the snipes over the top as well. Moswall did a great job in that engagement. Multi-man root, multi-man crush. That did a lot of damage to Zapman and to Jigs and forced him out. But again, he's the only one in these team fights, on the side of Noble at least, that is holding his ultimate really long. That could have been a kill on the Jigs and or Zap if Moswall just pulls the trigger a little bit earlier on the I'm a Monster.
And I get why they're cutting you that 5,000 gem a year salary. The call you made in that last engagement was perfect. They didn't want to take the fight on the Tier 2 itself, but because Space Station sort of fought in the jungle, we're trying to loop around, Noble felt comfortable taking the fight. And in the end, Skilladon's able to clean up Anitser. Zapman does take that Gold Fury because Noble still can't move too far out, but this gives Noble a chance to be in position for this Portal Demon when it spawns.
And that's going to be very, very shortly. Anitser's back, so even without his ultimate, going to be able to make an impact, and that ultimate should be coming up sooner rather than later. Noble decided that they'd rather not defend here, even with the Fire Giant, because the Fire Giant's still on space, 4 members of Space Station for about another minute. So Space Station could come through Portal Demon here and give another go at a Tier 2 push, probably on this right-hand side if they so choose.
Now, does Space Station, when they back, do they have to put on helmets?
No, because they're actually accustomed to they're on a space station.
Oh, okay, so
they're not in space.
That would be ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, yeah. What are you
thinking?
Point,
yeah, that would be actually silly. Yeah, if Space Station were in space. That's okay. They're at least here for this Tier 2 tower. Gonna give it another try on the right-hand side. Maybe that Tier 2 one was just a little bit cursed, as Zapman recognizes he can take this down easily. That glyph does actually add a little bit more damage on auto attacks that pass through it too. So Thoth, along with being able to just delete you from, halfway across the map, also can help with your tower sieges.
Probably the most underrated part of Thoth's kit is how good he is at burning objectives and towers for both himself and teammates. I mean, you set up that Glyph of Pain, you're increasing your DPS by a very, very significant margin, especially now that Anitser's level 19. He's got it maxed out. You're going to be getting an extra, 55 damage per auto for every ranged character that's throwing it through there.
We give Fafnir a lot of credit for doing essentially the same thing. Anitser is able to help set up damage onto those structures and towers as well, or not Anitser himself, but certainly Thoth. I mean, I'm sure Andy is pretty good at structures, but that's something that's in Thoth's kit. Now we see Space Station regrouping, recognizing now that the Fire Giant's only 30 or so seconds away from respawning, and they've got a lot of sentry wards down. There's really no vision for Noble about what's happening around that Fire Giant pit. If someone wants to go in and take a look, they're going to have to face check.
And this is the right timing for that Tier 2 to go down, as there's a Blink Cataclysm from Jigs immediately onto Wubbin. He's focused down, and he's brought back towards the entirety of Space Station.
Wubbin is forced to go in, but now it's Homie Efe who lands down and tries to put some damage on the Skilladon. The wall is good, and the follow-up is better. Moswall hitting 3 members with that crush, but Anitser takes down Walrus. Skilladon looking to be in a lot of trouble as well, as Homie Efe ends up cleaning up that kill. Now it's a 5v3 in favor of Space Station. Moswall and Wubbin so low. Wubbin not just low, but back to base. Scary D helps clean up that one, and Jigs gets Wowie.
And again, Moswall the only one left alive. Everyone else from Noble caught out, and it starts with Wubbin being out of position on that right side jungle. Another perfect wall from Homie F.A. in what was working in the early game for Space Station ends up working again in the late game.
And Space Station can just end off that. Space Station get that team fight. They recognize just 34 minutes into the game. They don't need the Fire Giant. The Phoenix falls. Moswell goes up into the I'm a Monster, but it's not enough. They can't defend it. So Space Station, off the back of what feels like just one team fight yet again,